Hi, I'm Velshi with MSNBC. With COVID-19 cases surging, the Supreme Court is set to weigh in on another pandemic issue, the legality of the Biden administration's vaccine mandates. Joining me for a more perfect union, Jeffrey Rosen, President and CEO of the National Constitution Center. Jeff, the court just expedited this case. It scheduled oral arguments outside of its normal schedule to consider challenges to two different federal policies. What are the issues at play, and how do you think this is going to play out?
Well, as you say, Ali, there are two separate vaccine policies, and one of them involves employers that have more than 100 people. Basically, it could affect 2/3 of all employers in the U.S., and it requires large employers to either make sure that workers are vaccinated or have frequent testing. And the second one affects fewer workers, and that says that if you receive federal money, then at healthcare facilities, then you have to be vaccinated. So, Ali, what's so fascinating about this case is that the conservative justices seemed skeptical of the first mandate and seemed likely to strike it down. The legal argument against it is that Congress didn't clearly delegate to the relevant agency, which is called the Occupational Safety and Health Agency, the power to regulate. And the conservative justices said, well, ordinarily the federal government doesn't have the power to make health regulations that are ongoing. Now, Ali, there's been a big debate about the scope of the administrative state of the federal government's power to regulate health and safety. And one of the biggest shifts in the Roberts Court with the appointment of Justice Barrett may be far less ability of the federal government to pass health regulations. And it's hard to think of a more dramatic example than striking down the cornerstone of the Biden administration's pandemic strategy. The liberal justices during the oral argument expressed incredulity about that possibility. Justice Breyer said that he thought that it would be incomprehensible for the government to strike down a policy like this. And Justice Kagan said that this is just designed to prevent people from being killed. So big division on the court. It seemed from the oral argument that that first policy involving the large employers might be struck down. The other policy involving the hospitals might be upheld. But if the court does indeed strike down one or both of these policies, it could signal a huge shift, not only for fighting the pandemic, but also for the Supreme Court's approach to the federal government's power to regulate and protect our health.
You and I normally talk about very specific instances, but I think you mentioned something about the scope of the administrative state and how the court sees that. They may be worthy of a separate discussion that you and I have to just discuss what that means and what the implications are for a whole lot of other laws that are out there. But that's for another time. Jeff, good to see you, my friend. Jeffrey Rosen is the president and CEO of the National Constitution Center. If you want to hear more, and you should want to hear more about the Supreme Court taking up vaccine mandates, listen to this week's episode of the We the People podcast, and be sure to follow Jeff and the National Constitution Center on Twitter @RosenJeffrey and @ConstitutionCTR.